Greetings, friends. Today's talk is going to be on karma and rebirth. It's not going to be a complete in-depth analysis of karma and rebirth, although it's not that really broad of a subject. But one of the reasons why I'm giving this talk today is there's a handful of online students, those taking the correspondence course related to the Truth of Happiness book, that are just about at this stage in that book. And it's always a good subject to review, because there's a lot of confusion about what the Buddha taught as karma and rebirth. And there's even a kind of almost, I guess I would say, a tacit dismissal of the importance of karma and rebirth. It's kind of claiming that the Buddha's teachings on karma and rebirth were only relevant to the time and are no longer relevant today, and that he taught karma and rebirth only because other people were teaching it at the time. There's a subtle difference in that too. The karma, a skillful understanding of what the Buddha meant by karma and rebirth is essential to understanding his Dhamma, and it flows from understanding, or that follows from understanding the context for everything that the Buddha taught, which is dependent origination and Four Noble Truths. And then the reason why the Buddha used the word karma, but the word karma that was common in common usage at his time, but his application is completely different and completely contradictory. In other words, he was just using a common phrase because it was what people understood, but as a teaching tool, in a way to show the difference between what reality was as far as it relates to karma and the common usage. So the common usage then and now is based more on the Vedas and some other teachings, some other loosely spiritual teachings that were around during the Buddha's time, that presented karma as kind of a universal system of reward and punishment, and kind of a universal behavior modification system, whether you see it as imposed by one overarching God, or this nebulous spiritual system that's working to impose something on us as a form of reward or punishment. And the Buddha, of course, realized that that's just a ridiculous notion. It doesn't relate at all to the Buddha's view of reality as expressed in dependent origination and taught as Four Noble Truths. Rather, that karma means action. The Pali word at the root of the English word karma means action, but even that has been misrepresented. The Buddha's entire Dhamma is to recognize that it's our thoughts, our words, and our deeds that are an expression of what we're holding in mind, the present level of our consciousness, and that what we hold in mind will determine our experience. So if we're holding in mind ignorance of Four Noble Truths, the karma that we will be producing is rooted in that ignorance, and it will be prone to confusion. It will be prone to confusion, prone to more diluted thinking, and prone to ongoing suffering because of that original ignorance. So in that way, it can be seen that karma is a direct result of what we're holding in mind. And again, not some sort of universal system of reward and punishment. You could say that we create our own reward and our own punishment here and now, but that reward is not in a pot of gold or a shiny new car. The reward of the Dhamma is an unwavering, calm, and peaceful mind, no matter what is occurring, no matter if we end up with a pot of gold or a pot of pebbles. It won't matter, because we won't be taking any of that personally. again, karma is often taught that if you take certain actions, you'll get rewarded, and often the self-referential ego mind will see reward as something that enhances its own view of itself. Got something good. And the opposite of that, but based in the same ignorant thinking, is that we take life's difficulties too personal and think that we're getting blamed for something, or that we are perennially prone to lack, to not getting what we would rightly deserve otherwise. Again, those are just foolish notions. The Buddha awakened to dependent origination, which states from ignorance through 12 observable causative links, all manner of confusion, deluded thinking, and ongoing suffering arises. And he described the result of that as the first noble truth, dukkha occurs. The Buddha describes dukkha as birth is dukkha, or stressful or suffering. Sickness is suffering, aging is suffering, death is suffering. Not getting what is desired is suffering. Suffering, getting what is undesired is suffering. And then he would almost always conclude that the statement by saying, in short, the 5 clinging aggregates are suffering. The 5 clinging aggregates simply describe an ongoing personal experience of suffering rooted in ignorance of 4 noble truths. So you could also say that the 5 clinging aggregates are karma. It's just that karma is the description of what's occurring to the personal experience of suffering. And you could also say that the 3 marks of existence, impermanence, the not self characteristic, and resulting dukkha, are karma, because it is the result of our misunderstanding of the interrelationship between the impermanence of all things, wrong views of self, anatta, and the resulting dukkha, that we get caught up in karma and we produce karma. And that leads to another important aspect of understanding karma. It's not skillful and within the Buddhist teaching to try to create good karma, because in the end, all karma is an attachment to a life experience rooted in ignorance. All karma is wandering in samsara. So what the Buddha taught is a way to recognize and abandon, through the Eightfold Path, the results of a life rooted in ignorance of 4 noble truths, or the results of a life rooted in wisdom through gained knowledge of the 4 noble truths. Another way of saying that, and it relates to the notion of becoming, and the reason why I titled my book, one of my books, Becoming Buddha, Becoming Awakened, is because each and every moment holds the potential, depending on what we're holding in mind, the opportunity to either continue ignorance of 4 noble truths, and so continuing disappointing and unsatisfactory experiencing suffering, or to develop, through the framework of the Eightfold Path, the refined mindfulness, so that each and every moment we are inclining our minds towards awakening, towards the cessation of the karma that is driving us, or the motivating force behind experiencing life from views rooted in ignorance. And so one of the remarkable things that I've realized or discovered, and it certainly has having the opportunity to teach has shown me how deep and powerful this is how a mind rooted in ignorance will create such very powerful but very subtle strategies to continue to ignore its own ignorance. That veil of continued ignorance is the same veil that allows for the continuation of karma. So let me just, it was going to be a long exposition, but I guess it is. There's an article that this is related to that's linked on the website in the category Karma and Rebirth. But let me just read a few lines from this. Karma is the present unfolding of past intentional acts moderated by the present level of mindfulness. And that statement relates to how do we get out of this? How do we bring the results and the momentum of our karma to cessation? And that is precisely what the Eightfold Path is designed for, so that it unites our mind and our body with what's occurring in the present moment. And now we are able to clearly see through a dispassionate mind. Lay down, pups. He's always got to get in the show. With a dispassionate mind, not needing anything to be different than it is, the results of our past actions as they're occurring in our present moment. And another way of saying that is that what is unfolding in the present moment is, and how we're experiencing that, is framed by the present level of our mindfulness. And if that mindfulness is still rooted in ignorance, the experience of what is occurring in our present life, which is the culmination of every action we've ever taken, this is what's unfolding right now, will be experienced by what we're holding in mind. That's the essence of karma. So no matter what is unfolding in our present life, if our thoughts are well informed and well framed by the Eightfold Path, then we will no longer react, and so continue the momentum of our past actions, and we'll be able to moderate what we're giving birth to in the next moment through our thought, through what we're holding in mind. And that, what I've just said, is really the key to the whole Dhamma, and I hope it's clear. And let me just read a few other parts of the book. Continuity, karma is the continuity of dukkha within impermanence. And so again, that points to an understanding, lay down, puppy, of the importance of understanding karma rather than dismissing it as something archaic, because dukkha is karma. And unless we do something to interrupt the momentum, the impetus of our past thoughts, words, and deeds, but most importantly, the type of conditioned thinking that has been with us through all of this, through the unfolding of our lives, unless there's something to interrupt that way of thinking, there's nothing to interrupt the momentum of the karma that's created by the actions flowing from those thoughts rooted in ignorance. Again, I hope that's clear. Now, that is what the most important teaching on rebirth. The Buddha was not concerned at all about what we might give birth to as a future life. He consistently taught that even the notion of wondering where I was in the past, what type of lives I've had, or what types of lives I might have in the future, are just distractions. And again, I know that goes against a lot of the common notion that an aspect of becoming awakening is having this profound understanding of past lives. The Buddha never, ever taught that. In fact, he discounted it, and he continually came back to reminding us that any thoughts about who I was in the past or who I was in the future is just a distraction, which points to the importance of understanding the most important aspect of rebirth, and that is, what are we giving birth to in this moment? Because that is the only thing that truly matters. What is occurring in my life right now as my life unfolds? And if I'm going to awaken, I have to be mindful of that fact, not where I might have been or where I might be going, but what's occurring right here, right now. And if we're holding in mind, let me go back just a little bit. If we develop profound concentration through shamatha vipassana meditation, the eighth factor of the Eightfold Path, right meditation, then we are able to hold in mind the refined mindfulness of the other 7 factors of the Eightfold Path, and then the Eightfold Path we become integrated with the Eightfold Path as the way that we live our lives, as our life unfolds. And through that refined mindfulness, then our actions become in accordance, I should say, our thoughts, words, and our deeds, our overall actions become in accordance with the framework of the Eightfold Path. And eventually, but actually rather quickly, we can overcome the results of our past karma, because we're overcoming the results of our past wrong thinking or wrong views. And so as our mind and what we're holding in mind continues to develop towards an awakened, fully mature mind, we're continuing to diminish the effects of past actions rooted in ignorance. And that is really the only thing to consider about karma and rebirth. Karma is the present moment unfolding of past intentional actions moderated by what we're holding in mind right now. And if what we're holding in mind is well framed by the Eightfold Path, then we will give birth to another moment that is inclined towards awakening. Yeah, Bodhi's always got to get in on the camera just a little bit. So that's my talk on Karma and Rebirth. It is a rather simple subject, but it must be seen to be useful and to be skillfully applied. It must be seen in the overall context of what the Buddha was teaching, which is how to awaken, how to develop full human maturity in this life, and really not that there's a rush about it, but to do it as quickly as possible. We have, it should be seen that we have only one opportunity at this, and that opportunity is in this present moment. There's no better moment to awaken, and there will never be a better moment to awaken, to understand and bring to cessation karma and give birth to an awakened mind. There'll never be a better time than right here and right now. And that's why it's so important to have the framework of the Eightfold Path to unite our mind and our body in our life as our life occurs. So that's today's talk. I hope you found benefit from it. And if you did, please consider a donation at becoming-buddha.com. And thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next week. Peace.